Compensation is really a fun topic. I know that's everybody's favorite topic, right? But on on a real note, it's super important. And if you don't feel good about your compensation, it's cool because you're in the boat with a lot of other people. I think wondering the same thing this year with post COVID. 2022 job offers that used to get people to say yes, they're now turning them down. So it's like, how do I build my comp plan, but also afford to run a business? Like, you can't just throw money at the problem and try to solve it. So we're super excited to go through that with everybody. Um, Everybody can see us, can hear us okay, and we're ready to get started. Can we get a couple confirmations in the chat? Get a couple confirmations. Okay, awesome. Well, appreciate everybody being here with us. Let's go ahead and get things rolling. Appreciate you rolling into this call with us. We do this every single week at 11 a.m. Eastern. If you didn't get the email, an email was sent out 2 days ago that we now have all of the recordings on eliteperformerclub.com. That's Elite Performer Club, not performers, just performerclub.com. The passcode to get into that website is Team Hired, all lowercase. Um, and so TEAMHIRED, no gaps, all lowercase. You input that. When you get inside there, there's going to be all of the recordings. And then there's also a section that we're putting in there for the survey for you guys to submit future topics. And then last but not least, it's where you would actually register. So if you just came in as a guest today and you need to actually register for future sessions, just go to eliteperformerclub.com and log in with the password Team Hired. So without further ado, let's get started talking about compensation. Now, one very important piece to today is that we're talking about how to create a compensation plan that gets candidates to say yes in 2022. So we're not going to be coming into this call forcing any specific one compensation plan on you. There's too many different businesses here, too many different variables. Every market's a little different. But if you go look at any successful compensation plan, and we will give you, I mean, we'll give you a specific comp plan. I'm not saying you have to use it though. The point is, you may walk away and do a premium-based compensation plan, or you might do an item-based compensation plan, or maybe you want to do a points-based compensation plan, okay? And I don't want to get hung up on how you're compensating. Today's conversation is a lot more about how do we actually get people to say yes in 2022? What are the factors that play into that? And we've seen all three types of plans do great. Compensating people based on how much premium they write, that's probably the oldest school, most simple way to do it, right? Item based, type of item based, right? Incentivizing specific items, saying, hey, if I want to sell more auto than I do specialty vehicle, my team members will make more money when they sell an auto policy versus a specialty policy. That would be an example of putting points to something and giving more value to certain types of items. But regardless of any of those three, I think there's some very, very important pieces to this compensation piece that no matter what you do, you got to understand. And the first is this. This is Magellan, technically, Tim, but this is you. You watching this. This is you in 2022. You are an explorer. And this is an analogy we're going to use today. If you guys don't like analogies, you don't want to be here for this call, because if you think about it, you are on a journey. You are going out and exploring every day to say, I'm going to take my agency from point A to point B. We're headed in a direction. And the game of compensating people is going to be broken down into what I like to look at as like the classic exchange. This goes back to, if you think back to a couple thousand years ago, there used to be all these shipping ports, and there would be a guy or a girl, they would have a boat and they would need to go out and explore, and maybe they need to go catch fish, or maybe they're going to go to a new island and try to settle a colony. But it was not a one-day trip. It was not a jump on my boat and work for me, we'll be back in a day and you can have dinner with your family. It was, hey, I'm going to be gone for 8 months. Do you want to come? And so that's no different than us with compensation plans for an insurance agency or any business, really, because the prospect is not a day-long job. It's not freelance work. The prospect is that they're going to come on your boat and they're going to go wherever you're going with you, right, for a long period of time. That's a pretty big ask, because what you're asking for is their time. 8 hours a day, specifically 40 hours a week, 2,060 hours a year. So when we're talking about, do I pay somebody 20 grand a year, 30 grand a year? Do I do straight commission? Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I do bonus kickers? Should I have benefits? I don't know. I mean, we do know, we're going to go through it today, but it's like, what is it worth for somebody to exchange 2,000 hours of their time next year for you to further your mission, to help your boat go across the ocean? And I think for many years, this whole game has been viewed as, I got the company, and I'm going to hire whoever is going to work for me, and that's what I'm going to pay. Whatever I pay is what I pay. But in today's market, it's like it's become so competitive. There's so few people sitting at this port looking to go out on boats that when you finally find somebody good who's like, yeah, I'd love to go out and ride with them for the next year or 2 years or 3 years and further our mission, right? Like it's going to take you a lot more focus and technique to get them to say yes, because guess what? There's 20 other boats lined up at port ready to go out at the same day. And some of them have swimming pools on the deck. Some of them, they bring you 6 meals a day to your bedside. Like some of these companies, just to bring it back home here, some of these companies, CVS, $3,000 sign-on bonus. Okay. So here's the big conversation. 2022, yeah, Andy, but there's not a career with CVS. Yeah, Andy, you go work for CVS and make $38,000 a year and get your little $3,000 bonus. Well, guess what? I mean, some people would rather do that than maybe make $45,000 a year at an agency where maybe they'll make it, maybe they won't. And they got to get a license, they got to do a lot of training, they got, a lot of calls to make. So we often have thought about, oh, insurance is so easy to get people to say yes because maybe they're coming from the automotive world where they got to work Saturdays, or maybe they're coming from real estate where they work 7 days a week. Okay. Well, that's great, but it's no longer going to be enough to say, well, the hours of insurance are convenient, because what else is convenient is driving out to Amazon or Chase Bank or Publix. I mean, an assistant manager at Publix down here in Florida, Tim, can make 58, 60 grand a year plus full health insurance for them and their family, which is equal to 70 to 90 grand in comp annually. So like you can do basic type jobs and really get to the level of a top 25% performer in insurance and not have to worry about commissions every month. That's a real problem. It's a real problem that in the Northwest, Burger King's paying $18 an hour base. Because if we're just competing on money, guys, we've already lost the game. Amazon, I don't know how many billions, if they're at $1 trillion now, you're not going to compete with their dollars. You're just not going to do it. There's always going to be another agency that's going to compete at a higher level than you on money as well. So this is the most important piece. When we look at this, compensation is you trading money and the platform, the opportunity for this person's time and skills. You're basically saying, I'm going to pay you this, and in exchange, I'm going to get your time and your skills, which means if they went to school, why do people that go to school get paid more? Because they invested money to increase their skill sets so that their time was worth more. If somebody's skills are greater, their time is going to be more effective when it's being spent. Nothing against, I'll use myself as an example. Nothing against 16 years old. I used to clean an alpaca farm. About 48 alpacas, and I would go drive out there, and I make $50 cash for, 6, 7 hours of work. But I was in high school, and for me, I didn't have a lot of skills, but I could scoop up alpaca poop and put it in a gator and drive it down and dump it in a field. I could shear them. I could hold them down while they're giving them shots, and I wouldn't make a lot of money, but I didn't bring a lot of skill. And I traded 2, 3 hours a week. They gave me $50 cash, right? This was my first job. And in exchange, the skills they getting are just, I'm a 16-year-old boy. I can lift stuff. That was my skill set. But now we talk about, oh, I want to hire somebody with their Series 7 property and casualty. I want them to have life and health, some commercial experience. They got to have management experience. I just want somebody to come in and basically run my agency. And you think you can do that for 38 grand a year, 30 grand a year base plus some commissions and performance? Like there's going to be another company that goes, their time and skill sets, given the shortage of talent right now, are worth more, and we're gonna outbid you. So here's the game. People say yes, and I'm reading right off the screen. People say yes when they feel that the money and the mission will be worth the exchange of their time and skills. The higher skilled the person, the more it's going to cost you to acquire them. So this goes back to supply and demand. Drop in the chat if you're an economist, if you're into economics. I'm an economist. I love economics. I love studying the relationship of money and time and marketplaces. And when you look at it, Everything, we were taught this in school, everything in the economy boils down to supply and demand, right? You supply the opportunity, right? Or you could look at it this way: they supply the skill set and time. There's two different ways to look at this. But the way we're going to look at it today is this: we're going to look at it from a standpoint of money on one axis, right? And then caliber on the other axis. So the person you're actually trying to hire. And when you look at this, here's three different outcomes that I'm sure you guys today are experiencing one of these three. The first is that you're underpaying people. Underpaying people meaning that the total compensation, base plus commissions plus kickers plus everything, the total falls below the market average for that exchange of time and skills. I'm going to go back to this analogy probably 10 times. If you're underpaying, it just means that you're not offering enough money to get somebody to want to exchange their time and skills because there's another ship going out on a voyage that's willing to pay them more. So that it can create, number one, you just don't hire anybody, or if you do hire them, it can create a lot of turnover. So you don't want to put anybody in a situation on your team where just with a little bit of smarts, they're going to sit there and just ethically like look around and go, I could do the same thing and I could make 20 grand more a year at this office. That's a horrible position for you to be in. You never ever want to try to get yourself in that situation. So if you don't know, what is the pay right? What is this middle tier? How do I pay people right? You have people on this call that you guys can network with inside of the Elite Performer Club, but also you guys have your market leaders. If you're in a corporation, if you're independent, you wouldn't have that. Your friends, your Facebook groups. The thing that I would do is I would just want to get data from maybe 10 or 20 agency owners in my local market. How do you guys pay? And I try to get a real good idea of the landscape. I mean, think about it. We're in a culture where agency owners will talk to each other about how they run their business. They're not as guarded as a lot of other businesses, which means you can literally go pull the market intel by putting out a post in a Facebook group. Go to a big, agency Facebook group. I know you guys are part of these, and say, hey, any agents in the XYZ area, anybody in the Dallas market, how do you pay your people, right? And I would start gathering data, but at some point you got to land on a number, right? For pay right. And if you're paying right, you're going to know you're there because there's not going to be a lot of time spent during the hiring process talking about the pay. It's going to be, okay, so this is the pay. The conversation is going to be more about the day-to-day work, what they're going to be doing. Like if you're hearing things like I would do it, but it's just not quite going to cut my bills, or I would do it, but there's another agency willing to pay me 16 bucks an hour and you're only paying 14. I just, they have the same commission structure. Like if you hear things like that, you got to be on it, and you got to realize like what's happening there is just that there's other companies that are paying more than you. But if you're paying right, okay, you're going to go compete against everyone else. But we don't want to talk about how to compete. We want to talk about how to dominate. And the way to dominate hiring, the way to dominate compensation is by paying right and treating people right. And Dave, the founder of Team Hired, says to Tim and I all the time, guys, hiring, compensation, retention, this whole game is like dating. It's like marriage. It's a relationship. It is a relationship because in effect they're trading a majority of their waking hours during the work week for your mission and for what you're trying to do. And so it needs to be a relationship. And the thing that'll kill all of this, anything we're talking about today, is if there's an attitude of I have employees. I have employees. If that's something that you believe, then we've got a bigger problem to correct, which is, you know, you do technically have employees on paper. In law, that's what you would call them. But the spirit of that is not what's going to work in 2022. You guys understand the spirit of I have employees is completely different from I have team members, I have peers, I have people that I serve as a leader to help them go where they're going. See, because when that becomes your tune and what you believe, and you're talking to somebody about whether they want to work for you and you have a compensation plan in front of them, there's going to be a major advantage that you have when your heart is in the place of I'm really just trying to help people and hire people that, yeah, I want them to have skill sets. Yes, they need to produce. Yes, they need to perform, all of that. But I want them to feel from the first interview all the way through to their first month of employment to the fifth year that they're with me that I am here to serve them. And the way that you do that is you serve them through the mechanisms of the business, such as putting focus on your culture, right? Putting focus on training your people, putting focus on supporting your people, creating a career path and a long-standing opportunity for them. If you can afford any sort of benefits, it doesn't have to be just health insurance, right? There's amazing creative benefits that wouldn't cost you a lot of money that we could talk about. Communication and leads. So like if you're not hard to communicate with as an owner, if the initial interaction is just very shortcut, they're going to feel that. They're going to be like, why would I go work with somebody that's hard to communicate with? Or if you're not, actually creating leads and opportunity for your team and it's just a straight cold call position, are you paying them like a telemarketer and intending on it being that position? Or are you trying to take somebody who really should be served up warm leads because they'd be way more effective, but instead we're having them cold call all day? Like, that's fine. And I love that model. And having a team of telemarketers is great. But just understand, like, we're talking about how do I pay right plus treat right? Well, in a relationship, like, you give some and you get some. So if I'm going to treat right, I'm going to be thinking about what can I do to set myself apart from the other agencies. And if that means that, this is the year that I begin investing in warm transfers, and that's part of my benefits package, is you get a consistent flow of leads at my company. There's something else that's going to set you apart. Career path. This is something that we talk about all the time with all of you, and it's probably the biggest miss on compensation. It's that when you're going through a compensation plan with somebody, you're not actually talking about, and I'm not saying you, right? But in general, a big mistake we see being made is like you're not telling people and talking to them about their career path because you didn't spend the time to get to know what their goals are personally. Like if you're not spending 30 minutes to an hour with somebody once every couple months who's a team member to recalibrate and figure out what's exciting them in life, it's a major miss. And especially if you're about to hire somebody and you hadn't spent 30, 40 minutes to say, you're 25 years old, you've lived 365 days, 25 times over. There's a reason we're talking right now and you're sitting with me at my office. That's a lot. 25 years is a lot of somebody's life to not ask them 3 or 4 questions about what they're looking to accomplish for the next 50 years, 80 years. So the point to that is like this career path piece, a lot of times we find is offered as a one-off statement. It's in passing almost. Oh yeah, and you could start your own agency someday, make a lot of money, be my manager, right? We throw this language out there, but when do we sit down and go, all right, Tim, so before we get rolling, I just want you to know I don't have employees. I have team members, which means it's my job every day to wake up and help serve my team members and help them go where they're going in life. So something that's important for me to understand about every single person on my team is really what's their main motivating factor for why we're sitting together today. So I want to understand why now? Why the transition? Like what are you not being fulfilled in with what you're currently doing? Right? What problem would this job solve for you? And then more importantly, I don't want you to start working with me and realize 6 months or a year in that this is just a 9 to 5 and that your worldly goals and the thing that you want to accomplish, that you're going to have to go find some other business owner to get those things done. What I'd rather do is just see if it's something that I can help you fulfill, right? Your goals, your dreams. And if I can be part of that mission, that's where the magic happens. My team members, when they come on board, I like to get in alignment with their goals. And then they understand my goals for the business. And then we just marry the two up in the middle. We all have a lot of fun. We make a lot of money. And we're very goal and mission oriented. But it's not right for me to hire you or ask you to come on board if I'm going to fall short on helping you fulfill your goals. So,
Right.
Tim, dude, can you talk to me a little bit about what brought you here in life? I mean, you said you're 25 years old, whatever. And you get into it with somebody and you start having this conversation. Um, with them about that. And again, like if you're kicking yourself, like, man, I should have done that. The last person I hired, like I didn't actually sit down. It's going to save you a lot of it's going to save you a lot of work because you might discover that somebody doesn't have a big career path or goals or aspirations at this point in time, and it might change the way that you think about hiring them because
Correct.
the guy Tim and I used to work for, he used to say, I don't want anybody on my team who doesn't know why they showed up to work today. Like everybody needs to have a personal mission, and then they got to believe in the company mission, and when those two things marry up, it's just pedal to the metal magic. If you right now have team members where you feel like it's laggy, it might not be your pay. Your base pay might be fine. $30,000 a year in your market might be just fine. What you might be lacking is an understanding of what your team's goals are and how to help them accomplish that. And so that's another huge piece. Support, training, culture. What does the lighting look like in your office? Are desks dirty or are they clean? Did you spend the $100 a month to have a cleaner just come in and make sure the place smells good and the trash cans are cleaned? Or you trying to save the $100, but you just cost yourself $1 million in production because somebody doesn't want to come work for you because they walk in your office and go, this isn't where my dreams are going to come true. Like if somebody doesn't walk in your office and go, this is where my dreams are going to come true, right? I don't care how much you're going to pay them. Like it doesn't matter at that point because if you do hire them, right, the inspiration, the magic that needs to be there for them to come out and hit the ground running isn't there. When you do these things, it's magic because you get in alignment with somebody who goes, my goals, my missions, my dreams as a person are understood by the business owner because they took the time to understand them. Then they took the time to break down a plan of how I could accomplish my career goals within this business. And then they showed me that they got training and leads and support and benefits and easy to communicate with and a positive team and a cool office and lunch in Fridays and great lighting and there's music playing when I walk in. Like, yes, that's the agency that wins, not the agency that's like, should I pay $35,000 a year? Would that do it? Like that extra 5 grand that you're looking to pay, John, is not going to solve the problem that people don't like working for you. You
Right.
guys understand? Like that's the game here that we're playing is it's a relationship and nobody's going to want to be in a dating relationship that's one-sided. That's what's the bare minimum that I could do that you'll go on some dates with me and that we can hold hands at the movies. Like people want a relationship right now. So when we look at that, base plus commission versus pure commission. What do we do? I'm going to just go with Tim. Let's say it in one, two, three. One, two, three. Base
Base
plus
plus
commission.
commission.
Base plus commission. If you're going to go pure commission, there's some of you on this call that do this, and there's some that
Right.
I've spoken to in the last month that do it all in. They've got draws in place because they understand that most Americans have less than $700 in the bank. And if they're going to go out there and do a 1099 commission position, and there's no draw to at least bump somebody's first 60 to 90 days, that it's literally impossible for them to hire somebody with $700 in the bank for a period of time, which they won't make any money for the first 2 months while they build their pipeline. Like they can't say yes, especially if they have a family or if they have bills. Now, if they're willing to eat canned food like I did when I was 20 years old, or if they're willing to like go take out a lending tree loan, like a personal loan to pay rent. I did that too back in 2016. Lending tree, moved down to Miami, was dead broke for like half a year, but I knew what I was getting myself into, right? So those of you who do the commission thing and it's working for you and you found your niche, we're not here to say you're wrong. You're right, and congratulations, because a lot of people have a hard time in this space getting that to work. We're going to go with base plus commission. It's the only thing that we've seen that's consistently worked, although I'm not saying pure commission doesn't work. I'm just saying we're not going to talk about that today. Premium points or items, any, any and all, any and all, doesn't matter. Okay, we're not getting hung up on that today. Here's what we're getting hung up on: simplicity. Simplicity. It's very important that when you sit down with somebody, that your comp plan is simple, one page, easy to understand. Why is that the most important piece? Honestly, why is that more important than if we use premium or items or points? Tim, can you guess? Simplicity.
Oh yeah, man. Once it gets confusing, it's I mean, how do you know how do you know what's going on? So once you start getting that like the zoomies here, like a cat, right? It's like you just like your mind is everywhere else. You're not focused on what's gonna get you paid. You have no idea how to get paid, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, exactly. You don't know how to get paid. That's that last line that you said. That's
Right.
it. That's it. Like that's the actual emotion somebody's going through. Imagine I'm just using examples here. You're 23 years old. You've been at T-Mobile for 2 years. You're making 39 grand a year with your annual bonus included in that number. And your buddy's in insurance and he's like, you should really check it out. So I go on Indeed.com and I find your agency and it says make 40 to $60,000 a year, base plus commission. And I go through the interview process and I sit down with you. And at T-Mobile, I'm like, oh, I make 10% of every phone I sell, and I make $2,000 a month in base and whatever. It's pretty straightforward. Some of these insurance plans we look at are like multiple pages, big spreadsheets. It's so much, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I need a calculator. Like I need 10 minutes. Let me pull out. You guys don't judge me with my glasses. I got to pull out the glasses and go through this. And like, I was already uncertain because it's a new job and it's going to be difficult. So like, I don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty. So
And
you can't afford to. Yeah, go
What
ahead.
about this, Andy? What about when they show like it's like imagine bringing that home to your wife like the first time. Imagine this is something, and then you show it to her. She's trying to wonder how you're gonna get paid. She's like, why don't you just find something else that pays $1 or two less, completely like evading the entire fact that you stepped into an industry where you could change your life because she didn't understand it either. Well, she was more certain. That's the real salesperson. So I
Yeah,
think with
yeah.
some of the issues, and you guys tell me in the chat, like some of the issues people have, or they don't understand how they're going to get paid. They don't know what goal, a target they're going after. They don't know if you can help them get there. So neither does the wife who needs them to feed the kid, or they need, to support them, or the parent who wants you to step into a good career and have no idea about the industry. So I think that's huge too. I mean, that was just a point that I thought of. I don't know. What do you guys think in the chat? Have you thought about that yet? Because that's something that we see is once they can't, if they can't explain that comp plan back to you after you kind of like walk through with them, I mean, it's time to, it's over right there. That's what I think.
I totally agree. And I know you and I both had those conversations with our significant others where they're
Hmm.
like, so how much does it pay?
Right.
And you got to break it down for them. So if it's some
Yeah.
complicated plan, you're like, if it seems hard to make money, it's probably going to be hard to make money. But if it seems easy to make, if the comp plan's easy to understand,
Right.
it might be easier to make money. So the overall impression. So we're going to break this down real simple. Do you see my screen again, Tim? I stopped sharing, but I reshared it now.
Yep. Yep.
So let's use that example. I'm at home with the spouse, and they're, what are they going to want to know? First of all, what are your hours? When do you work? Okay, so
Yep.
comp plan should have hours when they work. It should have your base pay, just right there. No, like no, just straightforward. Here's the base pay. Period. Here's the pay periods. Right? Commissions, performance. How do I get paid? So here we got hours, base pay, commissions, pay examples. If you do X, you'll make Z.
Huge. This is huge.
And we'll break down. I'll pull up a PDF of this. Expectations to maintain employment. I expect at least this much production per month.
Huge.
So I'm going to go back through this again. Then we're going to look at an actual compensation plan. Some of you have seen it. Some of you hadn't. Um, some of you have seen it, but you don't know the theory behind it. So this will be good for you. So scroll up. I'm getting there. I promise. Hours, base pay. So now I know when I work. I know how much I'm being paid just to show up, just to do my job. I understand how I need to perform to make more money. I understand the range of earning and what I need to do to hit those different ranges, right? If I want to make X, I got to do Y. If I want to make Z, I got to do A. So it's pay examples. This is for the spouse example, Tim.
Hmm.
For me, like this is the one that with my wife has been the one that the kicker, right? Because she looks at it and it's an actual number you can look at that is like something that most people can make sense of. So pay
Right.
examples, expectations. So my minimum production requirement
Huge.
is X amount of
Huge.
premium per month, X amount of points per month, X number of items per month. And if you
Huge.
don't do that, go back to last week's call on the portal. We went through accountability. Like you should have written expectations with every single one of your team members of minimum production targets, and if they don't hit it, what happens next? Do I get a write up? Do I get a warning? Do I get fired? Like what are the consequences for not performing? What are the consequences when Tom Brady throws 10 interceptions in a row? Do they keep him in the game just because he's got the name? No. They're like, get out of there, Bubba. Stop throwing interceptions till you fix it. Okay. And then the last one, or that next two, I guess, benefits, not employee handbook paragraphs of like line item number 6 tax code of the benefit. Like, do you have paid time off? Do I have paid time off, right? Are there some supplemental benefits? Do I get dental or not? Like basic, bulleted. And then lastly, we can talk about activity multipliers, which would mean basically that either A, you're incentivizing somebody for taking the right actions every day, like a certain number of phone calls or a certain number of quotes. And for that, you're giving them extra money or multiplying it, right? Like, hey, if you hit your, call target every single day for the entire month, I'll pay you an extra $500 that month, right? That would be like an example of an activity multiplier. Or there are also activity deficits. So if you don't do this activity, we're just not going to pay you any commissions. Pretty harsh structure. Got to have the right office to do it. Got to have people knocking down your door to come work for you to do that. You can't do that if you're at low demand. You can't hire anybody right now. If you're having a tough time retaining, but if you're in a position where people are literally coming to you, right, coming to work for you. There's some huge agents that are talking about these types of plans right now, and like they've got people knocking down their doors to come work for them when they see the opportunity. You can do stuff like this, where you literally cut it off. So anyway, this is the bones. What does it look like on paper, right? I'm sure that's what you guys want to know. So I'm going to pull up an example compensation plan, and this is not the end all be all, and certainly there's 5,000 other variations, but this is what we like to use on structuring, mainly because it follows these bones that we've been going through with you guys today. And this is going to be for an inexperienced person. These numbers certainly would shift and could shift depending on the market you're in, or if you're working with somebody who's got more experience. Because if you go back to the chart where we were looking at the ship and the voyage, okay, if I'm not just trying to hire somebody to come on my boat and maybe, I don't know, man the lines and clean the deck every once in a while, but I'm hiring somebody who can spearfish marlin, and if pirates come, they can kill them for us. They got all these skill sets. I'm not going to be able to take that dude on my voyage across the ocean without paying him more than the guy who's going to wash the deck, and that's his skill set. I hope everybody agrees with that. So we got to denote here, like we're looking at inexperienced versus experienced comp plans. Okay. So when we look at this inexperienced plan, we've got hours of operation, schedules 9 to 6. Tim, you could see this okay?
Yep.
Okay. We got base pay, $30,000. And going back, how did you guys find that number? You surveyed your market and you found 10 or 20 agents and you just found out what are they paying? Like, don't rely on some data set or some think tank or some like company like us who's a vendor who's trying to sell you something. Like, go talk to the people in your backyard. What do you pay? And if they're like, oh, I do straight commission or I pay 20 grand a year, and you're like, well, because that guy or girl pays 20 grand a year, now I need to pay 20 grand a year because he gets people to say yes. Well, that's not the whole story, is it? That's a base pay. That's one of 20 factors in a compensation plan. So I've seen a lot of people try to mirror very low base plans and think it's going to work just the same because they're in the same market. What they didn't factor in was the way that that person markets. And there's very big differences in the way people market, the conversion rate of their leads, what they provide to their team to make use of their time. And so what you really should ask somebody is not, not just your base pay. What's your base pay? Oh, Andy, my base pay is 25 grand a year. Okay, cool. And then what's your average producer making a year? Right? Oh, 41,000. Okay. Or if they're like 70,000, you're like, okay, they get a lower base, but what are you doing to get them to 70,000? You guys understand? Like, I can't do the low base thing and not have a plan to go compete in the market, because all that's going to happen is it's going to be a different form of underpayment. It's going to be a different form of I'm underpaying because the total comp available is not here in the book of business for this person. So anyway, if you guys on the base pay can't find answers from your local agencies and you're still leaving this call going like, I don't know how much to pay base wise, there's some work to do for you, but we're more than happy to help out with it. We can always connect afterwards. But the most important thing, the work you need to do is spend a couple hours and go do the research. Like, there's no other way to do it. Go talk to people. And then if you're finding a disparity, for instance, if you're seeing that people are paying a lot lower in your market than you're used to, you're going, oh, this is surprising. I think people pay lower than what I thought they would. You need to take that conversation with those agents to the next level and find out what's the total that they're going to be paying people in a year on average. Like, cool, I get that you're paying 28 grand a year. What'd your average producer make last year? Oh, I didn't have anybody make under 60,000. Okay, I've talked to agents that have very, they got their 25, $28,000 base, and they have nobody that makes less than 60,000 a year. I'm gonna assume that person has a ton of training, a ton of support, the right leads, they've got the right culture. Like, there's so many things going right for that business owner that to just think that this is just a number, guys, is it's not. The compensation is, how am I going to make up the fact that you're exchanging 2,000 hours of your time this year for my mission? How do we do that? That's not just a number. Okay. Anyway, without getting sidetracked, which I already did, hours of operation, base pay, commissions. How do I get paid on my performance? Pay examples, requirements, benefits. Okay. And then we don't have an activity multiplier on this one. So this is exactly what we just went through. Now, to break down each one of these, hours of operation, we all good on that? If anybody wants me to talk about hours of operation, seriously, we could do it because there's some things we could talk about. If I'm not getting any chat or Q&A here that's like, stop on that, then we'll move on. Base pay. We just talked about that. Okay. Go do your research. Commissions. Here's the most important piece. So on commissions, couple things here. First of all, you got to make a decision. Are you playing a game of a consistently small to medium sized business, or are you trying to scale something larger than what you are today? Because if your game is to just maintain, then I'm going to assume that you would lower some of the commissions at the higher end of this tier. I'm going to assume that for some of you, you're not going to pay more than the actual company. Like if you're here on this call, you're with Allstate, State Farm, or Farmers, or you've got a commission structure through your carriers, right? The only way that you could make sense of paying what you make and directly passing it through to your team member, not I'm catching you guys, not your employee, your team member. Hope you guys caught that. The only way to pass that through is to play the game of renewals and go, well, I'll eat it now. I'll take all the money I made and I'll pay my person that money because they're producing so much, right? They're hitting $45,000 a year or a month in premium. I'll pay them the 10% or the 9% and I'll break even. Well, you're not really breaking even because the lifetime value of that business, especially if you've got a 90+% retention rate on your customers, is going to be tens of thousands of dollars over the lifetime of that policy, whether that person's with you or not, right? So if you're not paying renewals, but you're willing to pay a higher commission tier on this high end, all you're doing is you're saying, I'm pouring on as much gas to my team as I can, and I'm not interested in making money from their activity. I'm actually betting that I'll break even on them. I want to make a bet that they do have the potential to hit that higher tier, and then I'm okay not making money for the first X number of months on it because I'm trying to go from a $2 million book to a $4 million book. I can't do that if I don't have highly motivated people performing big months. See, because the second we water it down and go, I really just want to hold on to that money, and I'd go from 2% to 6%. I want to hang on to the other 3 or 4% there. That's fine until it's not, right? That's fine until somebody quits on you because they can make more at another office, or that's fine until the culture of your team is just average. It's just people get paid average. It's an average agency. Everything's just average, right? But if you go and look at some of these agencies that have scaled quickly, they paid to get there because generally when you pay people more, right, based on their performance, we're talking commissions right now, not
Right.
handouts, not base pay. We're
Yeah.
talking commissions.
Performance.
When you're willing to pay more on performance, people tend to perform more. Like when you treat people right, they
Yeah.
tend to want to stick around till 6:20 at the office and finish that call out instead of rush the customer off the phone. They tend to want to show up early and do their research on how to take the company to the next level. Right? If you play that commission percentage right, you'll get them dreaming. And that's what we want them to do. You want to get them dreaming. What would it look like if I wrote $35,000 to $45,000 a year or a month in business every single month for an entire year? Well, I'll tell you what would happen. They would make about 80 grand. And if you guys pull out your calculators and you start doing the math on this, I guess we don't have to do a full-blown calculator session, but I'd like you guys, could somebody good with numbers in the chat break down if somebody produced for your agency $45,000 a month for 1 year, okay? Which if we're doing the math on that, what is that? It's like $540,000 in premium in 1 year.
I'm making I'm making Petrozella's a mathematician. Anthony, you got
Petrozella,
us?
Petra, you better do it. You better do
You
it.
got us,
You're
bro? I
you're
think
in the
I'm
heart of the
making
city there in New York. So
I'm
you
making I'm making you a mathematician.
so let's do the math. Five hundred
Do
and
math.
forty thousand dollars in premium per year.
Right.
Okay. You have a break-even commission at that level. Pick whatever percentage you'd make on that. If it's 9%, pick 9%. Okay. And do the math on how much you'd pay them, about 78 grand a year with their base. But then I want you to do the math of how much money would you make over the next 5 years if you retain 90% of that business. See, because that's the mindset you got to get into is like, well, yeah, I'm eating the first month or the first commission. I'm eating it. I'm literally passing it through, but I'm getting the renewal business. And my team member feels great because they get paid awesome. So they're probably going to hang around and stick with me. Every month they're with me. They have more experience with my book of business, more experience with me, more time for training, more time to come into the culture. It's a more experienced person that can train my newer people. Like retention is the holy grail of growing your business. And if you don't understand that, like we got some serious things to work out because you can run a shop where you just lose people every 6 months to a year and you just rotate people. Okay. But you go look at any major established office, they've got their key people, 2, 3, 4 people that have been with them for years. And the way that they do that is they're willing to say, I'm willing to give up my first part of the pot because I want the long game, right? I'm not going to beat this with a stick, but if you guys can think about the pirate analogy and the Voyager analogy jumping on a ship, I want you to think about it this way. You go out to sea and you're catching fish, right? And you're trying to hire somebody to come fish with you. You can either try to maybe give them a few fish that they catch, right? And then hold on to the rest and continue your fishing journey and hope that they don't starve and die. And then you have no fishermen to catch you fish. Or you can load them up with some mackerel and some tuna and get them fed. Get some fish in their belly so that they're full and they can endure with you. Like, do you guys understand? Like, you got to feed your people. And you got to feed them with leads, you got to feed them with money, you got to feed them with all this stuff, or they're just not going to be on that boat with you. Someday you're going to wake up and they jumped overboard. You're like, "Oh wow, I had 3 fishermen, now I'm down to one, and I got to pick up a fishing rod myself and cast it out in the water. I didn't want to be doing this as a 5-year business owner, as a 10-year business owner, as a 20-year business owner, right? If you don't want to put yourself in that situation, just you got to at some point confront some level of pain. And if that pain is paying higher commissions at the higher tiers, but it acquires a longer term business, great. Now, if you are in the game of constantly turning people over and you're in a sort of a maintenance track mode right now, and you want to just do as bare minimum commission percentage you can and get away with it, you can do that. And I've worked with agencies like that. Just what's the bare minimum I got to do, Andy or Tim, to like just get by, right? And that's like saying, what's the bare minimum need to do as a business just to get by, right? If everything is everything and the way I act about everything is the same, very, very important. So, Tony, thank you. So, Tony said if we produce $45,000 in premium per month for a year and we pay that person our entire commission on it, right? But then we look at the next 5 years at 90% retention, that would be $250,000 in business. So what I guess, trying to sell you guys on is for those of you who are on the fence on getting up into these higher tiered commissions where it's like how much money you make on the first sale, it's like, would I be willing to pay the $4,500 a month in commission to this person who's a real top performer, or maybe even performing above this, for the $250,000 I'll make over the next 5 years? So it's always an investment into your future, but it's an immediate investment into that person. And that investment has to make sense for them. The other thing on this commission structure, guys, is you'll notice that the premiums are broken into $5,000 increments. Okay. A lot of you, and I'm not calling you guys out because there's a lot of you on here. I can't call anybody out individually, but I've spent time with a lot of business owners in this space. And what I see is most people have tiers that are too large. If they're on a premium based plan, they'll have $10,000 or $15,000 gaps. They'll say, hey, you make 2% from 0 to 15,000. You make 3% commission from 15,000 to 30,000. You'll make the next year 30,000 to 45. Okay, way too big a gap. We should be talking in increments of 5, no more than 5. Okay, on an item plan, no more than a 5-item gap. I should never have a salesperson with 3 days left to go in the month think, oh my gosh, it's 14 grand additional premium I got to sell to hit the next tier. I might as well not, because I'm not going to produce that in 2.5 days. I never want somebody to be in that position. I want somebody to be always right on the verge of getting their next win. You think about the most popular television shows on TV, they're designed after games. My favorite show is Lost. If you guys love Lost, drop a big old heart in the comments or something. Okay, Lost was my jam in college. That's why I failed geography. Okay, Mr. Schroeder? Not Joe Schroeder. I had a Professor Schroeder. Okay, because I was watching Lost in my dorm room. Why? Because I was addicted to it. Why? Because the Coen brothers structured it to be like a video game where you're constantly unlocking new knowledge, but there's always just a little bit of mystery about what could be. If you want to gamify your comp plan, the easiest way for you guys to do that in a very simple fashion is decrease your increments here. If you have 10 item increments, take it to 5. If you have $10,000 increments, take it to 5,000, because you want to keep your team, every single one of them, on the edge of their seat every day of the month, that they could only be 5 or 10 phone calls away and a couple lucky deals from hitting the next tier and making that extra commission that comes with it. They're always right on the edge. So now it's 2 days left in the month. I've produced $24,300 in premium. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I sell an additional couple of policies here, I'm about to jump from 7% to 8%. My month is going to go from making $1,700 to over $2,000 in one day or 2 days. That's the beauty of a tiered commission plan. Okay. Or I want you guys to play this out right now. If you have a tier that's broken out in $10,000 increments, I'm sitting at 24,000 for the month. I've got 2 days left to go. And my next tier isn't until I hit, I don't know, 30,000 in premium. So I'm at 24,000. I got to hit 30,000. I got 2 days left to go in the month. If we're thinking about a game, that's like a video game that literally is like, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. Don't even play the game. You're going to lose, right? That's the voice in their head. You can never let that voice be in your team's head on your comp plan. The voice should always be, you're right there. You're right on the edge. Make the extra call. Do the extra thing. Go the extra mile without you having to step in and say those things to your team. The comp plan should do that throughout the month for them. You shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to do this all the time. The comp plan should just say, you know what, it is worth it. So increments, increments, increments. I cannot like harp on that enough that it's very important to keep small increments. Another topic of discussion would be, do I incentivize people below my minimums? Do I pay people a commission if they're producing less than my premium or item minimum for the month? So if we use the example of you require your people to write at least $20,000 a month in business, or they don't have a job with you, okay, if that's your agency, do I pay somebody a percentage if they produce $12,000 in business? Yes. Yes. And let me explain. You want to get people wins as soon as possible. If you don't pay people until they make $20,000 a month in premium and then you start to incentivize them, you will be punishing even your top producer, right? You'll be basically telling your top producer, I don't even have enough faith that you can do it month after month, even though you've done it for the past 2 years, that we'll start paying you based on performance there. Cause I pay you a salary and you have a base. So like, yeah, you'll make commissions once you hit the minimum. The only reason you're doing that is because you're afraid to fire somebody who can't perform. Okay. So we want somebody to start the month and we want them to make a commission on the first day of the month. And if you have a cutoff at $20,000, they can't do that, which means for the first half of the month, they're not being paid on performance. They're not. Like until there's actually like a hard set, they can go to bed at night and go, oh, cool, I actually made a commission today. If you just have them on salary until they produce your bare minimum expectations, what's motivating them for the first week or two? Fear. I really want to get commissions. I better crank so I can at least get to 20 so I feel good. Then what happens? They push to 20, they push to 20, they push to 20, they get it. Now I can relax for 3 days. And then those 3 days carry them into the final week of the month. And now they maybe squeeze out 22, 23. So it's like sucking all the momentum out of this thing. So we want to come in and say, no, like I have enough faith that you'll produce our minimums and I'm going to start paying you the moment you sell your first deal. However, if you don't hit this target on a regular basis, $20,000 a month in premium, you're going to get a warning. In the second month that you don't do it, you're going to get written up and potentially terminated. So like it's not like I don't expect my team to perform, but a lot of agencies, this is a story you're telling somebody in an interview. A lot of agencies will wait until you produce, what it takes them to keep their doors open, then they'll pay you commission. I'm a little different here. I believe people should get paid based on what they actually produce. I believe when you sell a deal, I should pay you. Does that seem fair to you? Everybody's going to go, yeah, that seems fair. I sell a deal, you pay me. That seems fair, right? If you're doing a cutoff at 20,000 or 30 or whatever that is, you're saying, I won't pay you commission until you hit my minimums. You're basically saying, well, I'm not going to pay you for what you sell because I have a base. We're getting into this confusing thing again. We're getting into this confusing thing all the way back to the beginning when Tim and I are like, simplicity. You sell something, I pay you. You sell something, I pay you. Does that make sense? Versus you sell enough to make sure that I can pay my rent and my light bills and my payroll and everything else. And once you do that, like I'm more than fine, and then I'll pay you. Like the spirit of that is very much that you have employees and you're the boss. Okay. Again, we're talking about a relationship. We're talking about a partnership. We're talking about a team. Okay. So if they don't hit the $20,000 and they do that for a couple months in a row, assuming that you followed everything we did on the last call, which was have written expectations for performance, you should have 2 or 3 strikes ready to go that if they're not hitting their numbers, you could say, great, warning, write up, taking your leads away. You're going home for a week with unpaid time. Like if you're not going to hit the number, we need to have a corrective action course here, and I need to help you, right? You're my team member, not my employee. So if you're not hitting the 20,000, I don't want to see you starve. I don't want to see you lose your job. I want to see you reach all those goals. So as a leader, how do I help you get there? So again, if you have this cutoff thing and you're on the ledge and you're like, I know I shouldn't do it, but I should, but it's just what everybody does in my market. Like, yeah, everybody does it in your market. And there's only a few agents that produce 10, 20, and 30 million bucks a year. So like this is data coming directly from, a lot of agencies that have had a lot of success. And I would just encourage you to think about, if you were the team member, if you were the person who was about to come in, how would you feel about not getting paid until you produced a certain amount versus getting paid on everything you sell, but if you don't sell enough every month, you just get fired? I don't know. That the second one I like because it's a lot more clarity. Tim, I don't know how you feel about it, but it's like we don't need to hide behind a compensation plan. We can
Right.
be
No,
adults and tell
I'm
people like,
I'm 100% with you on it. It's everyone's on the same page. But that's where a lot of people get the gray area. Is like when that expectation isn't set from the beginning. Like, all right, this, like if you're not producing enough, then you can't make a living for yourself. It's not gonna happen. And it's not, we can't keep you here because we aren't going to meet our goals. So I mean, we can just agree that this isn't going to work out by getting to this point and noticing that this is the case. So there are metrics to show you here, so there's no confusion, there's no, right. We could just know at this particular time, we've been doing this a while, it's not going to work out. But now like I've had this conversation yesterday. There's like a guy, he wants to purchase, but his fear is like he's got to let go of someone. He's fearing he's gonna have the same issue, and it stops with something like this. Those issues get stopped by setting the expectation from the beginning. And people say that they want to do that, but they just don't. They don't have a process in place to allow it to happen. I believe this is one of those things where you can make it happen.
cool. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Like if you're in that situation where you're just lost somebody and you feel like part of it's compensation, like,
Hmm.
if it doesn't work, you got to change it, obviously. And that's really good insight. And you look at like the way the rest of this thing breaks down, the person with this compensation plan is advertising that you can come in, work a sales job, make 40 to $80,000 a year, base plus commission. That you'll have a career path, you'll have some paid time off. So when I sit down and walk through this comp plan with somebody, it needs to match the job ads, it needs to match the expectations. Or even you've got team members that have been with you on the same comp plan for the last year or two. Like, look at it with them. I mean, Tim, I don't know if you've ever had anybody like pull a comp plan back up, but it's kind of amazing. Most businesses, you look at the comp plan once or twice and it never comes back on the
Never
table.
look at it again. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
like,
it's important. Like this is how you're gonna get paid. And we say the same thing. Is like when you treat it, if this is how you're going to get paid and you treat this like an entrepreneur yourself, you're noticing what you produce into this is what you're going to get out of it. So if we never look at this and we're never paying attention to it and we're just going off of blind faith at this point, I mean, we're setting ourselves up for failure. But again, that's like, let me ask you this: is this a tough? And this is for everyone here on the call too. Um, Anthony, we got you. But do you think this is where the tough conversation is had? It's like, is it a tough conversation to bring this back up and show you with the comp plan and revisit this, or is this something we should be
hmm,
doing often? Like, is it weekly? Is it monthly? What do you think? What bi-weekly? What's your guess on this, just to keep people on track? Because I'm even looking at this and I'm thinking about, all right, you know what? It's rolling in my head too right now.
I mean, what I would recommend to people is have a one-on-one at least once every couple of months with each one of your team members.
Okay.
And as part of that conversation, have a printed version of the comp plan on the desk. And the reason you want to have that with you is that the conversation is basically it's a support conversation. It's a, hey, you've been with me for 6 months, you've been with me for a year, not an annual review, not something that churns their stomach and makes them nervous the night before. Like this is a, hey, John, can I grab you real quick? Hey, Mary, can I grab you real quick? It's a, they didn't expect it and you just grab them. Maybe you have some Starbucks for them or something, pull them in a room. Hey, just wanted to check in with you. Want to walk through and see how you feel about you hitting your goals, see how you're doing with your family, see how everything's going. And I just want to make sure I'm supporting you as the business leader here and helping propel you into what you're doing. So let's walk through and see where you're at. First of all, let's pull this up again. Comp plan. So this is how you get paid. Okay. Before you even talk about it, how you been feeling about money lately? You good? You happy with what you've been paid? You want more? What's going on? Like, I would just talk about money with my team a lot more frequently. Tim and I work for a guy who I think both of us at some point were asked to go ask a stranger. Either we could ask a female how old she was in like a grocery store, or we could ask any stranger how much money they made last year. And if they told us that that's none of our business, we'd say, well, why would you tell the IRS, but you wouldn't tell me? We're neighbors. Like this was some social experimentation we had to go through. And like, I think for those of you who are very comfortable talking with your team, you can just, this one will roll off the back. But if you haven't had a good sit down one-on-one checkup with each one of your team members in the last month, like today would be the day. Like check in with your team, make sure that like they're understanding. They might even sit with you and look at your comp plan again every couple months. And they might say, well, I was wondering, I was kind of curious about how you would work the plan. How can I make more money on it? Because look, the way your guys' heads work with numbers, you're in numbers all day. Leads, systems, corporate, we got this, we got that, we got commissions, like blah, blah,
Right.
blah, right? I could just
Right.
puke all this data you guys freaking
They
swim in
did
every
it. They
day.
did it in the chat. Lead acquisition cost and Mark. I was like, oh, here we go.
They're binging through it. Yeah. And so it's like
Your team's not thinking about that at all.
they may not be. And if they are, like they're probably your manager or they're probably on track to go run their own agency. So like educate them. That's part of the training is like sitting down on how your brain works and be like, well, look,
Yep.
here's another thing. Get on the same page with them on how they get paid is how you get paid. And tell them
Mm,
that. I would tell my team that, hey, you get paid how I get paid based on your performance. So how I get paid is we go out as a team. I pour my energy and my time to train you guys and build systems and clear out issues and deal with problem customers and market and advertise and deal with corporate. All you got to do is get on the phones every day, put on a big smile, and sell the crap out of our services and our policies and help a lot of people. And for that, I'm going to pay you based on performance. So, I get paid a percentage of everything that you sell. And on the back end, it's, what I need to do to have you do that is actually support you. So while I'm investing my money back into technology and things like that, I know you've got goals. You've got not only rent to pay, but you got
right.
other things you want to spend money on. So how are we feeling about money? And like talking about money a lot more frequently, I think is a really important piece on this comp. Because if somebody, what you'll do, guys, and this is the kind of the last thing we'll finish up on, the reason we're finishing on that note is that some of you don't know if your comp plan is sitting well with your team. And the
Right.
easiest way to find that out is have a money conversation. How you feeling about money and have the comp plan. Because if they got concerns and you're talking about money and they're not in a good spot right now, guess what? Emotions will get the best of them. They will speak up. Like 9 times out of 10, almost guaranteed. I'm sure some of you could validate me in the chat here. You sit with somebody and you really like just start talking about money and income and how to make money and percentages and being on track and what they need to do to hit their goals. If they feel some type of way about your compensation plan, at some point they should get a little heated, right? Something they're holding back. And they should say, well, I was kind of wondering, it seems unfair that like if I do this, I make this, but if I like get get a platform going where people feel open to talk to you about your comp plan that currently work for you. Does that make sense? And then Candace said, I find that people sometimes are afraid to tell you the truth about money. Very weird. Yeah, because I mean,
The relationship with money is weird, you know?
yeah, they're like embarrassed or something. Like money is their not their net worth or their self worth. It's not who they are as a person. But like Candace, I think to your point, people are afraid to tell you the truth about money. And I think that in order to solve that, we've got to become more comfortable leading that conversation.
Mm.
I sat in on an interview at Grant's office, Tim, where one of the experienced guys said to somebody we were interviewing, there were 5 of us with one interviewee in a room. He said, how much money do you have in the bank right now? Guy goes, I don't know, about $100. He said, about $100? How much is in your bank account? He said, I don't know, I'd have to look. Okay, go ahead. Guy pulls
Open
his
it up.
app
Show
out,
me.
like $96.14. He's like,
Show me.
we're interested in people who understand money, understand their money, where it is, how much they need to make, where they're going. So if I were you, I'd probably want to know how much money I actually had before I figured out how much money I want to go make.
Mm.
And I was sitting in this interview like, holy moly. But like, that got me talking a little bit more. I saw his leadership on leading the conversation and normalizing it. And then what do? I start using that language. So
Mhm.
I mean, Tim, what are some? I know we're at time here. If you guys want to jet, please do. Go get on with your day. Go make some money. If you want to talk afterwards, just shoot us an email. We can chat with you individually about your comp plan. We're gonna hang on for another 5 or 10 minutes. If any of you want to hang with us, we're just gonna kind of chat.
Yeah, any questions that you want to come up and we need to answer here too? We'd love to. Looks like it was a lot of activity here. So
Yeah, before we jet off, and
yeah, yeah. So no, what was your question, man?
who me?
Yeah, were you gonna leave me with
Yeah,
something?
sorry, I interrupted myself because I saw we're at time and I wanted to respect
Nah,
people.
no
Normally,
worries.
permission to leave. We went through everything we needed to today.
Right, right, yeah.
But the question for me is like, what are some of the things that you found made it easy for you to talk about money with your bosses in the past? Like, what made you comfortable to talk about what Candace is saying? Like, what broke that barrier for you? What could some of these leaders be doing in their business to help get their people to be more open to maybe air their concerns about the comp plan or talk more about money?
Um, what I think one of the biggest things that helped me out was the first time I realized that I mean, because I was the type of person I just didn't want to look at my bank account for a long time. Like that was just me. Like I didn't want to look at it, didn't want to worry about. I was like, I got enough to pay these things. All right, great. But then, I started to think like that was like not really an abundance mindset. To realize like, okay, I got to scale this thing. So I was just afraid to look at it. I was like, oh my God, I'm failing if it's below. I just don't want to even know. I'll wait till the next paycheck or do this. So, and I was just personal. So I think that some of the, I've been there. I've been with some of the salespeople that you would have. I've been in that place. And then like, when I actually started to make money, I started to realize like how I wouldn't say easy. Let me not say it was easy, but how simple it was to do.
Mm.
And I think the real conversation was just measuring, like, okay, where am I at? Like, how many people do I need to speak to? I guess am I saying doing the math? We used to do that before. Is it
Yeah,
doing the math? Could you give for those who were here, can you give them the way that we would do the math on how we'd be paid, which is something really simple. Like we just make something up here on the spot. Like
just
do the
real
math.
basic.
Yeah, yeah. So if everyone who's here, Andy's we're gonna go, we'll do it together. We're gonna show you how to do the math or how to help your team do the math on what it is, on basically what their goal is for the year and how to actually get there. We somewhat showed them already. But I think it's something that I learned when we worked together. And I
All right,
never
then
noticed
I'm
that.
gonna put you on the spot because we're in the after hours now
Yeah, sure.
officially. So I'm gonna put you on the spot. You don't have to use like real numbers, but if you want to run
Okay.
them, start running them through that exercise because now we're testing your retention.
Oh yeah, so let's do this. Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's make it realistic. Let's say I need someone producing 85 grand this year in one of the businesses. So this is kind of tailored to what we do.
making
80.
85.
Yeah, they need to make 85, right?
They need to make 85.
Their base is 28,000. Let's just go a solid. Yeah, let's go 20. Let's go 28,000. I don't know. You know what? No. Let's do this. Let's do like a $35,000 base, right? And the target is we need to make 85,000. So they need to make 50,000 in commission.
How much was base? Sorry, I missed it. Tim.
Base is 35.
35.
Yeah. You guys can copy this right now. You can kind of figure it out. We're just tailoring it, right?
Yeah. So, and this is type of stuff like what Tim's talking about right now. This is the conversation in a one-on-one, like doing the math with your team members and getting them to think through this and really reconnect with their comp plan. Because you might have the perfect, honestly, your comp plan might be fine, and
Right.
your team members' disconnection with it might be that they're very disconnected with it. You got to spend some time with it, right? Understand it. How do I get paid? The more you understand that, the more you're going to get paid, right? Right.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
target
The right
is
attention on it.
85,000,
Hmm.
base 35. So our gap or our like required commissions. Oh geez,
It's all good.
my ability to type.
It's all good.
Required commissions would be 50,000, right?
Right.
So the way you want to break this down is you want to go to average deal commission. Okay, we're going to circumvent and not even talk about revenue. This is literally just commissions.
Right.
So if I want to make $50,000 in commission, my average commission per deal, right? Real simple way to do that. If your average ticket is, we're going to use $600. My average ticket is $600, right? Average policy $600, and the average commission somebody's making is, let's say, 6%. Means that I'm on average making 36 grand. I'm sorry, $36 per policy sold as a producer. Okay, so 50,000 divided by 36 equals, I'm going to round up a little bit, just a little bit. It's always
Sure.
nice to round up, a little buffer for mistakes, um, a little buffer for pandemics. Hang on 1 second. It's tweaking out on me. Okay, 1,400. Okay, and I rounded up, but $50,000 in commission divided by an average of $36 I make per policy. By the way, everybody on your team should know what's their average income per policy. How
Right.
much cash, and like not just pre-tax, post-tax. Like if people make an average of $600 ticket and they're making an average of 6%, they're making an average of $36 per deal. And then if they're making $36 per deal, but they're being taxed, 26% on it, they're actually walking away with about $26 per deal. So like you might want to look at getting a number on everybody's desk on a printed sheet of paper that shows them their average value per deal. Like just so everybody can see each other's and they can compete on that. Because if your average deal value goes up, you need to sell less deals, right? If you higher tickets equal less volume equals faster growth. So really, I think like having some numbers on a desk is super important for people to see. And that's not anything proprietary about their comp plan. You're literally just saying like, hey, here's the amount that this person makes per deal. Because then I go, great, I need 1,400 deals. And I
In a
got
year, right?
an average of 22 business days a month times 206. So I got about 264 uh, business days, and
Hmm.
of those 264 business days, I got to sell $1,400 deals over that period of time. So divided by 264, so 1,400 divided by 264 equals an average of 5.3 deals per day. I'm going to round up again. And the reason we're rounding up when we're running math like this is because it's adding a buffer for mistakes. What if my close rate gets off 1 month? What if something happens? Like I
Right.
need to plan on accidents. The easiest way for the math is just to say, okay, if I sell an average of 5.3 deals per day for 264 business days a year, I'll sell $1,400 in a year. And if I make an average of $36,000 per policy, I'll make 50 grand in commission. Combine that with my $35,000 base, and I make $85,000 this year. For whatever reason, why I want that money, a boat, pay rent because I overpay rent. I don't know. Buy a bunch of stuff. Who knows? Who knows what they want to do with it? Who cares? Um, so 6 deals a day, rounding up here, 6 deals a day would get me to the target. So at 6 deals a day, I've got 6 divided by a close rate of whatever market you're in. There's some of you on this call still with us that are in a market where you only close 10% average, which means 60 quotes a day. 60 quotes a day, right? So it's really cool to find a break like this. It's cool to find a break like this, that when we advertise make 100 grand in my agency. When's the last time you broke down the math for somebody and
Right.
actually had to stand behind it and say, so to make $85,000 a year at my business, you just have to quote 60 people a day because we average about 10% in the state of whatever close rate. Like 60 quotes, it's not that it's not possible, it's that to do that. So you start to look at this and you're like,
Right.
well, I know people making 90 grand. Yes, you know people making 90 grand that have completely different close rates, or they're in a
Hmm.
different market, or their average ticket is higher. Like you can't lie to the math. The math doesn't lie. If somebody in another market's paying a lower base pay than you and they got people making more money than yours, there's something else happening there. Like you got to dig into it. And so I think why this is important is because, Tim, thanks for running us through this. If you're sitting in a one-on-one and I can break down this math for somebody, I might not want to start with the $85,000 target, right? If I haven't done the math myself. So like I don't want to get in a conversation with like a Tim, right? If I was an agency owner or if I worked for you, you wouldn't want to start doing this and not know what the answer was. and then come to the conclusion of 60 quotes a day and then stare at me and I stare at you. I go, so should I start looking for work now?
Right,
What you want to do is like, first of all, do people actually want to make the 85 like now this year?
right.
Or is the goal like they made 40 last year, they're trying to make 55 to 60 this year? Like, what does that break down to? And so, yeah, if you guys haven't done the math with your team members or had them break it down this way, heavily encourage you to. And I guess what we could do, Tim, we could probably throw this in a PDF and put it in the portal as well, and
Sure.
just create
Yeah.
a single page worksheet for people. But you want to get to a number you want to get to an activity. You want to get it back to what do they need to do to be successful every day. So, if you can look at that comp plan with them and then break down this math, they're basically going to have their answer as to what they need to do to be successful, right? It should boil down to a number of quotes that they need to hit per day to hit their annual earning target. It should come down to a number of quotes, number of people that they talk to. Does that make sense? So that's, I mean, it's going to help you kind of boil it all the way down to square one, which is like, what do I do today to get this comp plan to work for me, right? How do I hit that target? So, Tim, I don't know if this is the math exactly that you wanted to go through, but is this,
No, yeah, I mean, regardless of the
please,
fact that it's really just the process of it. It's like,
just the
these numbers are
breakdown?
completely made up. And Angie even made a point. She's like, if they're making that much, then they would be at a higher percentage, so the quotes would be even different. They'll be less at that point. They're making that much, But it's just the fact of if you're quoting that much, you know that you're headed in the right direction. But I don't think people can put the math down. And sometimes here's what changed for me. And this may be what some of your salespeople are going through with and the reason why we have like to have them listen in is because when they don't do the math, they may have put a limit on what their belief is or put a limit on their expectation or their work ethic, not knowing wait, you know what? I already quote. Let me see how much I quote now. I already quote 20 people a day. You know what? I'm not even really trying that much. What if I just tried a little bit harder? Could I do 40 quotes a day, naturally? And then how do I scale to 60? And that's the conversation they have with you, which opens up an entirely, you see what I'm saying? It changes the culture of
Mhm.
the business. Now you got someone who's just striving for something that's way out of line, but they're going for it. They're going to hit it. They're going to be better than last month. That changes everyone around them when they see them pumping like that. Now everyone else is, and it's got to be a conversation that you have with someone who's like that. It's like it's almost like that experiment with the salivating dog, man. It's like you continue to show them, and eventually they just get it. Like, whoa, hold on. You break it down enough, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, hold on. I think I see it a little bit. I see a little bit of light, and that's what happened for me. I eventually saw enough light. I saw enough light, and going through this with you, like I said, it's having teammates that can actually deal and do this together changes
Yeah,
the game.
yeah,
Changes the game for you.
absolutely, absolutely. And to your point, you get that person who will have this conversation with you and really look at their numbers and get fired up about it. You're right. It drives everybody else in the business because the guy or gal who's been with you for a year or two now and they're just kind of coasting,
Hmm.
all of a sudden they look over and they're like, "Oh wow, like that guy woke up," and he woke up
Yeah.
because he had a leader like you sit down with them and get them refocused on what is the daily target. What is the daily target? Not the week, not the month. Like what can I focus on today to hit my goals? And I think sometimes people need that too. They need somebody that thinks the way that you guys think, which you think in big numbers. You guys are thinking about scaling multi-million dollar businesses. So you can be a huge help to your team members and get them to think in terms of business owner numbers because you guys might take it for granted that you're sitting there on your phone crunching numbers at 11 o'clock at night, and it's because it's what you do every day. So definitely help your team out and help them break down the math as well. Um, I guess I'll stop sharing this out, but we'll get you. I'll commit to that. Let's do a worksheet. We'll throw a worksheet in the portal
Oh yeah, make
to
it
help with the
nice,
math.
nice and aesthetically pleasing.